The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
See the riding on the pavement. Young kids, they're growing up in basements. Online, a whole new generation. I'ma make mine, so you better go take it. Always they need a new replacement. Decentralized, can't contain it. We're changing lives, yeah, upgrading. Call it suicide of the older generation. What keeps you up at night?
What does keep you up at night? It's probably the Whiskey Rebellion. This Whiskey Rebellion, as a matter of fact. And I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, I have, of course, joined by my co-host. First, he's combat jacking it. He's gonna paint the town white. Ladies and gentlemen, the disapproving dad, the submissive brat, Juicy J, Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
What was interesting was watching you guys nod your heads, and I heard nothing. I heard absolutely nothing other than you guys just sitting there nodding your heads along with the music.
It's weird,
which I pretended was there.
I was gonna say weird that because I think Robert had the same complaint one week where like some of us could hear the theme and some of us can't. It's
pretty well, it's entertaining at least.
Fucking streamer, man.
It's all right, you know, as long as the audience got it, that's fine. But hey, I'm here. I'm combat jacking it, buddy.
I'm so happy. I'm always happy to see you combat jacking it, Jesse. I can watch you combat jacking it all night long. Speaking of combat jack, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the Metal Coop. This time he's on time. This time he remembered when the party was. Robert Cooper, how do you do, sir?
I mean, this was the one party that I knew was happening. It's very fortunate. And we're also fortunate that whatever flag Jesse gets a hold of immediately means we surrender.
I have only one question that our listeners care about, Robert Cooper. Only one thing the Whiskey Rebellion viewers and listeners care about, and that is, how is Natalia?
She's about ready to pull out my hair and her hair because
she's about ready to pull out.
Exams start next week.
Oh my goodness!
And they're working on heart murmurs, which apparently all sound the fucking same.
That sounds very stressful.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything medically related. That's why I sell shit. I talk for a living.
There you go. I talk for a living too. Hey, this is the second appearance from our Canadian office. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Andrew Graham, our resident war historian and military expert. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, Mark. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Hey, remember when you promised that we would every year do a Veterans Day show and then you flat left me to go shoot bears in the woods? Canadian bears, that is.
I was not shooting bears in the woods, but I think at that point, basically, we just had a cascade of sicknesses around my house. So don't worry, I definitely paid for it.
The story I heard was that you were like dripping maple syrup in the snow for the bears to follow, and then you would like one time them with a 9mm. That's what I heard. You just like
you can't take 9 mils into the woods here.
You and your homies were in a snowmobile, and you one-timed a bear that was licking maple syrup in the snow.
No, what ended up happening was we did that. He kicked our ass and said to us, "Hey man, you aim at the king bear, you better not miss."
Hey,
it's to the wire.
Yes, I'm gently teasing Andrew Graham because he's here because we did not do our annual Veterans Day show, and it made me very sad. We were supposed to do a triple feature for Full Metal Jacket, The Outpost at your request, and Hamburger Hill. And as you said, maybe so much it wasn't the cocaine bears or the maple syrup bears. It was the fact that your whole house had the plague. Yeah. So and then December rolled around. And by that point, we were like, this is never going to happen. Yep. So we decided, you know what? On an episode of the Whiskey Rebellion, we'll just do a whole list, like the Casual Heroes. We'll do a whole list of war movies. And that'll give us an opportunity to talk about some of these ones that you and I were going to talk about anyway. So that is the main topic for tonight's Whiskey Rebellion. The top 25 greatest war movies of all time, as brought to you by IMDb. But before we do that, Jesse, story time.
Oh goodness! I hear you've got some information for me.
Sexy story time.
Before we get too far.
There you go.
And the sad part is this is non-alcoholic, so it's not even going to help.
Yeah.
You want to remember these stories, trust me.
You know what? Just as a real aside. So the last time I went sexy story, I talked about Caliente and a girl that we knew that I don't know, but we heard about from Mag Like Dick that, did terrible things and was forcibly thrown out of a sex room. That apparently is a very popular TikTok. Like part one, that was a 3-part TikTok, and part one has got like a zillion views. It's crazy. Every once in a while I get an alert like it's someone else like your TikTok, and I'm like, oh, me talking about Caliente again? Really? Well, all this shit I talk anyway. So we all know based on Jesse's, and I'm gonna make Andrew Graham take it one of these days. I'm gonna publicly humiliate you too. Everyone has to. This is it's like being jumped.
The real trouble if this shows up on TikTok is my wife's already on there.
Everyone gets jumped into the Radulich and Broadcasting gang via the BDSM quiz. So we've already had Jesse take a turn out, and it turns out, as we all know, especially if you saw it on TikTok, Jesse is a submissive brat, aren't you, Jesse?
I am. I took a test.
Yes.
So are the results.
You passed the test. So, Jesse, hang on, we got to run in here, NWO style, with a steel chair. It's Jeff Sloboda. How do you do, sir, from the MCU's Bleeding Edge?
I'm Wakanda forever-ish, baby.
You are Wakanda forever. He's Jeff Sloboda is black and he's proud.
That's right. Biracial forever.
That's right. Transracial. We identify as what we like.
Oh, anyway. Transracial. I forgot. Sorry, Rachel Dolezal hasn't filled me lately.
Okay. So we're telling sexy stories. Anyway, so Jesse, now that we know that he's a submissive brat, he was like, I need to take classes on being submissive. I'm like, why would you need classes on being submissive? Well, because they're offered out there. There are, Jesse, for your pleasure and education, classes on being submissive and dominant. And do you know what I did this past weekend?
You got to tell me what happened.
I took a dominance class.
Oh, really now?
Yeah.
Did you get, I want to know what you scored. Like
there was no quiz at the end.
What was the test like?
I had to borrow a pencil. I'll tell you that much.
How many hash marks did you come back with?
Oh no! To make it disappear.
So, like half of it was it was held at a public sex club, that I have talked about here in Tampa, Eyes Wide Shut. It was while the place was empty, basically. Like there were some people at the bar, but on like the play area side, they were doing this class and there was nobody there. And like I said, they had talked about like the previous week was the one for submissives. This is the one for dominance. So it was like half a lecture and him just kind of walking us through his experience with it, walking like what it means to be a dominant, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of what dominant isn't. Apparently, it's not just about smacking people in the ass, Jesse. Did you know that?
Oh,
did you know that being a dominant is not just about smacking your bitch up?
I had no idea.
No. Did you know, Jeff Sloboda, that of the MCU's Bleeding Edge, that being a dominant is about making your submissive the best version of themselves they can be? You're like a life coach, essentially. You're a life coach that beats ass. Don't you understand what I'm trying to tell you? A dom makes their submissive the best version of themselves. Isn't that incredible?
Look, ever since She-Hulk downed me that one night, I've been questioning my sexuality every day ever since. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not even sure whether I'm gay or straight or who's I fucking am anymore. You're about
to get put in the Radulich and Broadcast. I was gonna say you're about to get put in the Radulich and Broadcasting basement with Jason Teasley and Alexis.
Yeah, I'm gonna be now that She-Hulk popped my cherry. I'm all fucked up. I mean, that's why I was late for the show. I'm in therapy for She-Hulk domination.
You know, Jeff, when I hear you talk about She-Hulk, I can only think of one thing.
Get on with it.
Come here, horsey.
That was like the horse. That was like I identify with that horse. It was very similar to when She-Hulk downed me.
Andrew has been waiting an hour and a half to say something. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was about to say, that whole description sounds a whole hell of a lot like the New 52 version of the Joker.
How so, Andrew?
Well, no, that's okay. So it's just because I just finished reading Last Night on Earth about 6 years too late, and that's the whole Joker shtick for the New 52 is like no, I'm going to be the worst Joker I can so you can be the best Batman you can.
That makes sense. So, in all seriousness, Jesse, when you take Mindy to the dominance class so that she can properly be a dominant towards you and you could be a good submissive, understand that dominance, it's about communication, not about bullying, it's not about ordering people about, it's not about just like go inside and make me a sandwich, bitch. You can have a service sub. You can be a service sub, Jesse, which I know is something that you aspire to be. You know, to bring your wife a sandwich and coffee and and everything else, you know. But it's not just about Mindy telling you what color underwear to wear. It's not. It's more than that. And it doesn't have to be that. There's how you haven't beat the shit out of me is beyond me.
It's called distance. All right. There's so many miles I cannot cross in one night.
In all seriousness,
the real question is, does she tell you what flavor to wear?
I mean, that's the thing, is there's not just one kind of dom out there. Just like there's not, there's not one kind of sub, there's not one kind of dom. There's an array of ways these relationships can be formed. So half of it was a lecture, the other half was an exercise that we did, and where we got to use the St. Andrew's cross, or as we like to call it, the CM Punk cross.
Don't read this the wrong way. I actually have a St. Andrew's cross behind me right now.
do you chain your wife up to it and daintily run your fingers? Like what are we talking about here, Andrew? Please share with the class.
It's a flag, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like I chain her up to the flag. She doesn't stay. We use Velcro and shit. So all right, Jesse. Hang on. I'm sorry, Jeff just sent me something. All right. So do you have any questions, Jesse? Any questions for me about this Dom class that I went to?
How long was the class?
An hour long.
Was there like examples or participation, or was it just all strictly like talking?
No, we didn't. The last half of the class, we did an exercise with our bottoms or subs or whatever.
When you said bottoms. Wait a second.
Could be bottom,
face down, ass up.
Tops and bottoms, boys. Tops and bottoms. Stoms and subs.
Gotcha.
Use the lingo, sir. Use the lingo. The language of love.
My God, guys! If you've never seen the Lady Heather episodes of CSI,
oh goodness. Oh goodness.
Share with the class, Andrew.
This is a whole thing on CSI. This is like. They had this character, and I can't remember the actress's name, but Lady Heather on CSI, who was in like 5 or 6 episodes, and basically it was like the secondary love interest for Gil Grissom. Okay, they're actually really good episodes.
So the exercise, I don't want to get into too much detail about it because I don't want to give too much away on the show and betray people's trust. You may not be able to hit me, Jesse, but there's someone in this room who's probably going to by the end of this discussion.
Good.
Actually 2.
I'm outnumbered. I think a squishmallow just got thrown at me.
Nobody
asked you. All right, so to conclude this silly lecture, the exercise that we did at the end was really, really good. A lot of it had to deal with, again, communication with your partner. A lot of it had to do with kind of knowing what your bottom or submissive needs and being able to provide that need again, and it not being totally just about, as we fancy say, impact play, or anything like that, or any of the other stuff that falls under the BDSM umbrella. So, Andrew, I know you have a million questions for your, dominant submissive lifestyle up there in Canada. Would you like to share with the class?
I'm going to ask this question. So in terms of like the configuration of this, was this people who are all coming in kind of, I'll assume pairs, but also knowing that there may be more than pairs?
A couple of solo people, mostly pairs, people that have been in the lifestyle anywhere for a year to longer, but definitely everyone kind of, I think, realizing that there's always something that they can learn. And what is the harm in coming to a lecture of this kind and picking things up? There's something in the community called Munches, which is another place where people come and talk and share experiences. Because this whole lifestyle is so informal, people kind of get into it, make mistakes, run into bad situations, and the more you're able to communicate with people in the community, the better off it is for you. And so that's kind of the purpose of it.
So, like, by and large, this is much more about the kind of the underlying philosophies, principles, that sort of thing, as opposed to necessarily getting into the, like you said,
it wasn't like we had all of our bottoms line up and everyone took batting practice. It was
That's what I thought it was.
Do you interchange condoms during it? Do you have to like? Do you have to? Is there consent involved in each bottom? Is your line? I'm imagining them lined up by bed. Consent. You know what I mean? Like in a line, like how that would all play out.
There was so much consent. Consent sprayed all over the room.
So you had a Dutch rudder.
All right.
Oh my!
You had a right.
Who wants to move on with the central topic at hand? All right. So let's get into the top. Unless anyone has any burning desires, I am ready to move on.
If it's burning that bad, you should get it checked out.
Yes,
that's the number one rule of playtime.
Thanks, Scoop. Always between you and Jeff, always something really interesting to provide us. All right, here we go. As we said at the top of the show, the central topic of tonight's Whiskey Rebellion is top 25 greatest war movies of all time. Just going down the line, Jeff. Have you ever seen a movie that wasn't Marvel?
Yes.
Oh, good. Any of the war movies? Any of the war movies? What's your favorite?
I don't. I mean, I don't do so good with favorites. I'm not like
Name
I'm not
one
one
you
of,
like.
If I have to, it's hard to pick a number one, but I'd have to say maybe Kelly's Heroes is really good.
Okay.
Platoon.
Oh, now we're talking. Now you're speaking my language. Andrew, Graham, what's your favorite? Is it The Outpost? What's your favorite war movie of all time?
You know what? The Outpost has got to be up there now and that's maybe a little recency bias. I mean, I also have to say at this point, like some of the series we've talked about are pretty high up there. So like, you know, probably any piece of filmed war media, like Band of Brothers is probably it for me. So along that line, I'll probably say like Saving Private Ryan or something like that. Black Hawk Down, solid too.
Black Hawk Down is an excellent movie. Jesse, what about you?
Favorite war movies?
Yeah.
War of the Worlds.
Oh my God, Jesse.
Saving Private Ryan has been up there for me for quite a while, but it got dethroned by 1917 a couple years ago.
Ooh, that's a good one. So. That's a really good. That one might actually be beating that, and Dunkirk's up there too, if only for the sound design on the Spitfires.
1917 is so good. But like it's so good because I'm such a film snob, and that one take aesthetic.
Oh yeah,
like we know it's not really one take, but it's filmed like it's one take. It's so good.
What's also like it's Roger Deakins and who's the composer on that one? Thomas Newman. And those two guys are like cheat codes for movies.
Yeah,
it is impossible to suck.
Robert Cooper, your favorite war movie of all time?
Well, of course, damn, I was gonna go with Infinity War just to be a smart ass.
I have to learn. There has to be a way of putting people in a basement on this podcast because I'm gonna figure it out.
That's fine. You know what? That's fine. I get along with everybody, except Jeff Harris.
Fair enough.
I think mine would have to be the feel-good story of Come and See. Anybody know that one?
I actually was just listening to a reference to it, so I've never actually seen it.
Yeah, it is not. It is probably what I mentioned the other day. Like, hey, let me make sure I'm in a good mental state before I watch these movies. Yeah, that one's really the that one is really the inspiration. It's more or less the Belarusian people trying to survive the nastiest Nazi. The guy's so bad the SS put him in timeout, and Hitler was like, "Calm down, dude."
Damn.
All right.
Yeah, Oscar Derlwenger. He was really good at logistics. So instead of killing 500 people with 500 bullets, put them all in the barn and burn it down.
Oh my gosh.
Right, so my two of the more contemporary films, mine's Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket. I've threatened to wake my kids up for school with that opening drill sergeant monologue. So many lines, and I can't say any of them right now, except for "I like you. I'd let you fuck my sister."
I am Gunnery Sergeant Hartman, your senior drill instructor.
I am not racist. I do not differentiate between, and you know what he says.
Yeah, you're all equally worthless.
You are all equally worthless. Did you, Private Pile? Have you had any? Did your mom have any children that lived? Now choke yourself. It's so good.
Do you also threaten to wake your kids up like they do in that movie and beat them with a pillowcase full of soap?
I have definitely threatened to beat my kids with a sock and a soap, but not wake them up that way because that's cruel.
I have an anecdote when we get to that one, but I'm going to save it for right now.
My other favorite is Braveheart. Let me tell you, I saw that movie with my buddy, but when it came out in theaters, and you never think of like period pieces as like war movies. You think of like more contemporary stuff, but it's absolutely like a war movie and a romance and a period piece and Mel Gibson's ass. It has everything. It's just an excellent movie, and I love a good running gag, as we know, and because of that movie is the reason why I say we lost a lot of good horses that day. Yes, sir.
I got to jump in on this one.
Yeah.
Braveheart is 13-year. This is the 13-year early version of 300 for Scottish history.
Yes, it is. All right, let's get into the actual list here. You know what? I'm gonna do this list order. We'll just leave it the way it is. Oh, there's the button. That's the button I wanted. Starting at what would have been number 25, I guess, but is now number 1. The Hurt Locker. What do you think of this one, Andrew?
Good enough movie. I mean, kind of tells an interesting story. Apparently, everyone in the EOD, the Explosive Ordnance Disposal community, hates it.
Why is that?
Because apparently, just personality, everything about it is wrong.
Okay.
Tell an interesting story. Does it kind of tell a war is a drug kind of narrative? Sure, it is, and it's got some great sequences. The sniper thing's pretty cool, but I mean it's all right.
Anybody else seen this one?
Yeah, well, shouts out to Jeremy Renner because I mean he did get almost killed recently. You know what I mean and whatnot. And apparently he's gonna come back, but we don't know what kind of shape he's gonna be in. So prayers, to Hawkeye.
All right, next one is Hacksaw Ridge. I've never seen this one. Jesse, Robert, you ever see this one?
No,
I have not.
I know.
Unfortunately,
this has got Andrew Garfield in it. My daughter has actually wanted to watch this because of Andrew Garfield, but
really,
yeah, she's a pretty big mark for Andrew.
I feel like now that you're saying Andrew Garfield, I feel like I've seen this one.
I think this is also, of course, I wonder, actually, you know what we should have done? We should have went through this list and did a cross-reference to Sabaton songs. Because I think the guy that's in this is actually a character or, something that Sabaton has sung about. But anyway, it's Aldi, what's his name? Help me out here. Andrew, you remember who the star or this is based off of?
Well, I think the guy there, it's Desmond T. Doss. So I kind of understand the broad strokes. Basically, it's about a American medic who saved a bunch of people, but he was known because he was actually like a pacifist. So he never actually carried a weapon.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard a variety of different reviews and reactions to that movie. It was also notably directed by Mark, here you go, Mel Gibson.
Yes, that's right. And Mel Gibson's ass. All right, The Thin Red Line. I remember it looks like it has 7 Oscar nominations from 1998, directed by Terrence Malick, starring Jesus, Sean Penn, Nick Nolte, and Kirk Acevedo from Oz. And I remember hearing a lot about it when it came out. I think this one got past me, Andrew.
I saw this one too. This also has a stupid cast. This has Clooney. It has Clooney. It has Woody Harrelson. It has one of those ridiculous casts. I think there's like the first time in 15 years that Terrence Malick directed something. I remember seeing this about the time it came out, and it was just so bloody long. It was
boring.
I mean, it was a gorgeous movie, but man, it had a lot of meditations on war and some literal meditations too. I mean, it was gorgeous, but it just there wasn't a lot going on with it. In terms of like plot and action and things like that. Not saying bad movie, just very different from a lot of these.
Jesse or Robert, anything about The Thin Red Line?
Nope. Always wanted to see it, never have.
I own it, but I still need to watch it.
All right. So 1962 is The Longest Day. I'm going to go ahead and say no one here has seen this.
I've seen it.
Oh, you have?
Damn.
All right, tell me about it.
Yes. This one I'll also note, holy fuck, what a cast. Because again, you have John Wayne, Robert Ryan, Richard Burton, Henry Fonda, You also have Sean Connery in this. You have, again, a ton of guys from that period. This is when Hollywood was doing a lot of very kind of by the book. We're just going to tell this entire story to exhaustion. And I emphasize to exhaustion. Because, again, this is a very long movie. It's very episodic. It kind of jumps from places to places. It had an actual French cast. It had an actual German cast. So there are French parts. There are German parts. I think there are Polish parts. And there are everything else. So it's a fairly comprehensive kind of take on D-Day everywhere from, the various American and British beaches all the way to the paratroopers. For some reason, they decided to skip Juno Beach, which I won't hold against them too much, but moving on.
All right. 1941, Sergeant York. All right.
Nope.
I'd never heard of it.
I've heard of it, but never seen it.
1953, Stalag 17. All right.
Nope.
Also never heard of it.
1953, From Here to Eternity. Or if you like, from Ministries, From Beer to Eternity.
I'm more familiar with that.
Yeah, same.
All right, come on. Somebody has seen 1967's The Dirty Dozen. Speak up. A forever hold your peace.
Ha!
You're not on this podcast, you. Besides Kelsey, has anyone else seen The Dirty Dozen?
I've seen the porn parody.
Perfect.
It's a classic.
All right, let's
talk about that's a good film.
The Dirty Dozen?
Oh, it's a good movie. Yeah, I like The Dirty Dozen. It's a good movie. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Okay. All right, let's talk about one I've actually seen here. Inglourious Basterds from 2009. Quentin Tarantino, Brad Pitt. This is the fantasy Nazi hunting movie. This was the thing about this movie isn't even so much like the war aspect of it. This is Quentin Tarantino playing with fantasy. Like he did with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and just sort of playing around with historical events and sort of switching things around to see like what would happen if this happened. Inglourious Basterds is very much like, well, what if we got Hitler in the before it was
what
too
if
late?
We dropped two magazines into Hitler's face.
Yeah, exactly. This was very much about just that that fantasy, that Jewish fantasy of getting revenge fantasy on Nazis, and this is. I like Inglourious Basterds, but I wouldn't put it past anyone to say the movie's a bit indulgent. Robert Cooper, have you seen Inglourious Basterds?
I have, and it has absolutely ruined any attempt I've ever had to say Arrivederci. That's the first time I've said it correctly in over 10 years. Usually I just go Arrivederci.
What'd you think of the movie, bud?
Oh, was that the question? I do agree with it being sort of overindulgent, but I do feel like in a way that's sort of the charm.
Sure.
Very much.
It's not a criticism. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's one of those. Just your mileage may vary depending on what you're looking for. I greatly enjoyed it. I haven't watched it in a long while, but maybe I could, especially if I want to hang out with Quentin Tarantino and his toe fetish. My God.
So, Jeff, have you seen Inglourious Basterds?
Yeah, yes, I have, and it's actually funny that it makes me think of my regular transgender guest Jasmine on The Bleeding Edge. She on one show, she's like one of those guests. I love her to death, but she gives me panic attacks occasionally during shows. Like one of those deals. And the other day, she refused to give in that she's like, Captain America's Jewish. That was her big thing during one show. She refused. I swear, she's very historically naive. So her evidence or her premise for this, of course, was based on the fact that Captain America punched Hitler. Right there, you go. So this led into the fact that the Jews won World War II. Yes,
all of that made my brain hurt, and now Andrew's going to walk into the woods to live deliberately with the cocaine bears, aren't you, Andrew?
No, I'm not. I'm going to request this. Each and every man on this podcast owes me 100 enemy scalps, and I want me my scalps.
Hey, Jesse, how gross is the end of...
It's a fun movie. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It gave us Christoph Waltz. So, Mark, in fact, Quentin Tarantino is the author of all your pain, James.
This is true. I'll tell you what, Christoph Waltz in that opening scene with the milk is a brilliant... I mean, you want to talk about anatomy of a scene. That is one of the most brilliant scenes in modern cinema. It is perfect.
The beer hall scene. I mean, come on. This is it's all over the place. It's a fucking weird movie, but I mean,
yeah.
Tarantino, when he's being peak Tarantino, is pretty damn watchable.
Jesse, how gross is the end of the movie when they carved the swastika in the one guy's head?
Not seen it, but it must be pretty gross.
It's awful.
I think that's my best one yet.
Jesse, do you remember that time you and I were gambling, and I kept yelling Diddy Mao at you, and you were like, Mickey Mouse? No, Diddy Mao. And we were doing Russian roulette. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I sure do.
Do you remember how we sat?
Just like yesterday.
We sat across the table, and we were drinking, and we were playing Russian roulette. Fun times.
Is this Deer Hunter?
It is the Deer Hunter.
All right.
The Deer Hunter's wedding scene is 1,800 hours long. It's still going on from the 1970s. It's fucking amazing. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to sit down and watch The Deer Hunter, that wedding scene is interminable. Has anyone else seen this besides me?
Nope.
Yeah, I have.
Have you? What'd you think of it? You know what I'm talking about then, Jeff, right? That fucking wedding scene?
Yeah, when I think of the movie, I mean, I think of how young, God, what was the actress's name?
Christopher Walken and Robert De Niro.
No, the actress.
Oh shit.
That was a young. Come on, Andrew.
I haven't seen it either.
No,
I haven't either.
Either way, no. Classic film. The wedding scene is very long, and then I can see how Meryl Streep, a young Meryl Streep, and she was outstanding. I think she's an attractive woman now, but she was hot in that film. As boring and like sad and fucking like intense as that movie is, I think a young her, it's hot. I'd love to have her to sub her out sometime.
You watch The Deer Hunter for that fucking Russian roulette scene. Everything builds towards that, and it's a great scene. But like to get through the 90 million hour wedding, All Quiet on the Western Front. We just reviewed the now Best Picture nominated German film All Quiet on the Western Front. That's on Netflix. This is the original 1930s. Anyone seen it?
I've seen probably about half of it. We watched it back in high school. I was sick during the first half, but I ended up catching the second half. And, there's a reason this is one of those ones that people keep on going back to. It is, I'm going to say, from what I saw of this version, it is definitely a lot more, I'm going to use the word tender than necessarily the 2022 version, which is pretty raw in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, we talked about that in our review.
Yeah, and it's interesting in terms of, it definitely has... like I saw the last 20 or half hour of it, and it is definitely very different in terms of how the characters meet their end. Yeah. All of those are a lot more random. They're a lot more unintentional, as opposed to the 2022 version, where I think some of the impact of the movie was taken away by the fact that action A led to consequence B, as opposed to emphasizing that this is kind of the cruel randomness of war.
2006's Letters from Iwo Jima. Anyone?
Never seen it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Hated Flags of Our Fathers.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
He was the world's greatest pianist. Good night, everybody. Has anyone seen The Pianist? No?
I have not.
No. Go ahead.
Okay, I need to ask one question here. And I'm not trying to reduce the subject at all because we just passed Holocaust Remembrance Day, but do Holocaust movies count as war movies?
Here's the thing.
In general.
So here's the deal. So the tagline here is: a Polish Jewish musician struggles to survive the destruction of the Warsaw Ghetto of World War II. If your setting is set during a war, and the war affects said setting, it is a war movie in my opinion. Jesse, what do you think? Because you always disagree.
Yeah, I'll agree. That was
oh my god.
No, I was just thinking that if it's focusing on how the war is affecting, I guess, a nation or a subsect of people, whatever, it's definitely, it'd fall as a war movie in my opinion.
Okay, that's interesting. So just as a bit of background, I have listened to a couple of war movie podcasts. The original version was called Friendly Fire, and it was blown up by the Bean Dad saga. If any of you ever heard of that?
Bean Dad?
Yes, Bean Dad. There was one of the co-hosts basically went online, live tweeted tormenting his daughter by making a can of beans, which then led to people looking at the rest of his Twitter feed, finding stuff that he refused to apologize for, and basically the show blowing up.
Oh, wow.
Now, a new incarnation of it called, it has its own thing on like I know that meme. Just go look up Bean Dad. But anyway, and now they have a new version, and I think Mark, I just sent you an episode on All Quiet on the Western Front called Danger Close, which is quite good. So
you did send that to me. So the thing, I've never seen The Great Escape, but Eddie Izzard does a really funny comedy bit about it. Jeff, you've seen a lot of these old movies. You see The Great Escape from 1963?
No, to be honest with you, that's one I've heard of it. And I love Eddie Izzard, but no, that's one I haven't seen. I've seen Braveheart though. And I must say that Braveheart is. I don't know if they'd be able to make that now. That's one thing. That's why that's when I look at the list. The whole thing I keep thinking in my head is, what if we looked at the list and we said to ourselves, what could they make now?
Yeah,
and what would kids like our kids nowadays even be willing to watch?
Okay,
long
if
enough
it's not on YouTube and it's not less than 10 minutes, nothing. But I get your point.
Yeah, like some of these are so long. The Pianist, like, you know what I'm saying, The Thin Red Line. I tell you right now, my daughter would never watch The Thin Red Line. She would last like 7 minutes.
Yeah. I would love to get my kids to watch Braveheart. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I mentioned it before. It's one of my favorite war movies of all time. It's just one of my favorite movies in general. I don't even know when. I don't know how old my kid. Like, I've shown my kids Scream, so it's not about their ages. I don't know when they would be old enough, mature enough, and have the attention to sit through Braveheart, because it's a movie that really does demand your attention. It's an excellent movie. It's darn near perfect, but and for its time, Andrew, the CGI in Braveheart. I mean, like. I joked before about we lost a lot of good horses that day, but the amount of like CGI and stunt and practical effects needed to create in 1995,
that was a lot more stunt and a lot more. Actually, a lot of it was like animatronic horses.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yep.
In 1995, that is the realest looking battle sequences in that era of history that I'd ever seen captured on film. And that was like the big selling point of Braveheart, if you'll remember, was like the realistic battle sequences, not just, the acting and the costumes and everything else, but like how real all of that looked. Because I mean, it's a stampede of fucking war horses running into spears.
Yep. And
graphically.
It is a good movie. It is a terrible history movie.
Okay, I ain't watching it for the history, you nerd. I'm watching it to kill horses.
Dude, why did you invite me on this thing? But like, literally, I've been to all of the battlefield in this movie. I've actually been there.
Okay,
the Scots kind of hate this movie very deeply.
Okay, hang on. I'm gonna get off my hind legs. You're right. I brought you here as the smarty Audi Canadian to give us a good learning. So tell us about Braveheart, you smarty.
Okay, so Jesus, sorry. This movie is just so hard to break down everything they get wrong, because they get everything wrong. They
wasn't even in Scotland. The whole thing takes place in Venezuela. Sorry.
There was no blue paint on their faces.
Okay.
They totally the king at the end, Robert the Bruce, they totally do dirty. Mm-hmm. He was actually one of the greatest. It's probably still one of the greatest heroes in Scottish history.
Okay.
I mean, like, it just gets so much of it wrong.
I thought we were going to talk about on this list. I can't believe it's Braveheart. I can't believe it's Braveheart that we can tweak your nipples as hard as this. But please.
Oh no, this one is a personal favorite. Like, this doesn't even do William Wallace a lot of service, because he was a smart fucking guy. Like, the first battle in it is the horses and everything. No, that first battle was him drawing a bunch of the English across the bridge, sending a bunch of guys across, cutting down the bridge so they had fewer numbers, and then kicking their asses. Like, he was a smart guy, and this doesn't just the whole movie does all of it to service. Jeff,
there was something else you wanted to add?
No, I just wanted to point out that I think when I saw this, I was 12, and I don't know. I mean, I come from grew up in the 90s. When my dad or mom, when they sat me down, when they watched a movie, I watched it with them. It was that simple. When dad and mom watched a movie on Sunday or Saturday, I sat down and watched the movie because they were my mom and dad. So at that point, that's how I watched like The Deer Hunter, right?
Okay.
And I'm glad that my dad had me sit down and watch that. But it didn't impact me. At 13, Braveheart really impacted me. Mm-hmm. They may be not accurate historically and whatnot and everything, but the gratuitous fucking violence in those scenes, those battle scenes, that combination of then the story itself, and you said there is a love story and whatnot and everything. I found it captivating at like 13. I did. It really blew me away.
I think I'm 19 in 1995. And like I said, I'm there with my best friend, and we're like in tears by the end of it. Like I get what Andrew is saying about like this was obviously Hollywooded up, but for what it was, the fiction that it was, it's just phenomenal. Robert, you look like you're about ready to like like you're like chomping at the bit here. What do you want to say, bud?
I was 4 years old in 1995.
Oh, you're so young.
You know what? I get to say this for once. Fuck you.
Well said. All right. 1957's Path to Glory. 1981's The Boat. Stop me if you guys have anything you want to add to this, so we're going to move this forward. All right. Here's one we can all talk about. Platoon, 1986. Andrew, you and I had a conversation about like Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, some of these other movies, you know, that there was this pattern where some of these war movies in like the 80s and maybe the 90s, they all kept ending the same fucking way with a sniper of some kind. Like no one knew how to end their war movies anymore. It was like, well, we've said what we needed to say. We've editorialized our opinions on these wars. We've shown you that war is hell. How do you want to end the movie? Fucking sniper. But I'll tell you what, Platoon's a hell of a movie. What do you have to say about it, Andrew?
I think I've only ever seen it once, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't deny it's a great movie. Like, great performances, great chemistry. I mean, you know, the tug between Tom Berenger and Willem Dafoe. I mean, obviously the iconic ending with the death of Dafoe's character and everything like that. I mean, you know, one of those standby classics. And I mean, going to kind of your point, I mean, Jesus, I mean, you can kind of treat Vietnam movies as their own separate genre.
Yeah.
Like they all have kind of the 4 or 5 things where it's like you have the squad, you have the guy who's too hard bitten, you have the guy who's too chill, you have the guy who's just stoned the entire time.
Right.
You have the fresh faced, you know, kind of the FNGs and stuff like that. So it like again, it's, you know, it's a classic movie and probably one of your better versions of a Vietnam movie.
Jesse, you ever see Platoon?
I have not. Is this the one with the necklace of ears?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
It is?
Yeah.
All right. Now, see, I had to have either seen that passing by or something, but I've never sat down and watched the whole movie.
All right. Moving on. Patton, 1970. We had this. I never sat down and watched it. I've heard it's amazing. Yeah.
It's good.
All right. Here it is. One of my favorites. Full Metal fucking Jacket, baby. I mean, like, Stanley Kubrick's not everyone's cup of tea, but I love Full Metal Jacket. I will tell you this, though. It has the same problem as Avatar, where it just feels like 2 different movies. Like, that whole training sequence is about, what, a half an hour to 45 minutes long?
Oh, yeah.
And when it ends with Pyle committing suicide and killing the drill sergeant, it feels like it's the end of the movie. And then there's this whole other movie about Matthew Modine being a war correspondent, and the movie ends with them under sniper fire. It just feels like a whole other movie. Like, I love Full Metal Jacket, but it is not without its craft issues. That being one of them, that it's a jarring change from the training sequences to the whole of the rest of the movie. What do you think about that, Robert?
Oh, I mean, I wonder if that also could be, in a way, looking at that as it is in real life too. Like, you have what they tell you is going to happen and what happens when you're doing your training in your boot camp and then actually getting out there and really discovering the hell of war. Funny thing watching this movie, I watched it with my buddy Nick, who one day will be on this podcast.
He said the thing.
Hey, take a drink. And, you know, we watched the first part of it, you know, get the private pile and whatnot. And I was like, oh, okay, I know about this. And then we had that other part of the movie, and I'm like, what? Nobody told me this was coming.
It's kind of like Wakanda Forever when fucking the Power Rangers show up and Predator.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. All right, Jesse, Full Metal Jacket, your thoughts?
One of the few movies on this list that I've watched twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else I could say about this movie because it really is a statement of like some of the horrors that you could find in war and some of the scary stuff.
You know, Jesse, you being my friend in not only polyamory but also rap music, you know what this movie gave us, right? What do I get for $5? Anything You Want, which is the opening clip to
what
do we call
horny.
Me So Horny?
Love you long time.
2 Live Crew.
Sitting at home with Jeff's dick all hard.
Wait a second.
Yeah, you don't know Jeff Sloboda was in 2 Live Crew?
I forgot about that part, man. That is a hilarious scene. What's she call them all? USGIs or whatever.
Right. What do we get for $5? $10? Anything you want. My mommy only gave me $5. Oh, it's such a great scene. But yeah, that was the opening clip to Me So Horny.
The prostitution economics in that over there are really in
the 70s also.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew. Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, an 80s classic.
I have seen this movie probably only about 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to or watched the opening monologue probably about 500 times.
How many times have you played it for your sons?
Never once, and I won't be any time soon. Okay, a quick side story on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I was part of the youth organization that shall go unnamed, who was kind of paramilitary in nature, and I was at a camp where I was an instructor, and never at any time would you ever talk like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman would in this movie.
Okay.
That said, we also put him on a pedestal of it's like that one day we will talk to them like this. We would love to talk to them like this. But we'll never actually do it. But that was definitely on there. For those of you who don't know, that entire opening scene was improv.
Yep.
Wow.
And that was also a recasting. They initially gave he was there. That actor was there as a consultant, and then he was given that part to do. And he knocked it out of the park. It's one of the most classic monologues in cinema history. Everyone knows it. Like, they don't know what movie it's from. They at least know that much. So keeping with you, Andrew, Saving Private Ryan. It's a classic. It's got all kinds of awards here. 5 Oscars, 11 nominations, 2 Golden Globes. It's a Tom Hanks classic. 1998, it was like the movie of the year. I mean, it's got its criticisms, it's got its critics, but I think for the most part, people pretty genuinely love Saving Private Ryan.
Definitely. And maybe I'm going to backtrack to Full Metal Jacket for 1 second. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say one thing in examining the whole theme of training and what it does to somebody. The movie that might do that a little better at this point is probably Jarhead. But anyway, sorry.
I don't know if Jarhead's on this list because I didn't look it over before we did this.
I don't think so, no. But anyway,
it is not.
Going right back to Saving Private Ryan. Yeah, I mean, that has been a movie that has redefined war movies for the past generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really has. Everything else, whether it be realistic or whether it not be, is on some level judged against Saving Private Ryan in terms of its realism, its level of drama, its cinematography. It kind of, in a lot of ways, for me at least, I think that was when you really started to notice a lot of handheld shots and shaky cam.
I want to say,
right?
if from a film historian's point of view, when we talk about movies that impacted the way movies are shot or showed you something on screen that never before had been so graphic, so crisp, so pure in its cinematic beauty, the D-Day invasion.
Oh yeah,
my God! Like, there's violence. There's graphic violence, and then there's that. And it's not gratuitous. It is realistic.
Yep.
And I think if you don't know anything else about Saving Private Ryan, you know that's the D-Day invasions.
Yeah.
That's the movie with the D-Day invasion scene where you as an audience member who may not have been very familiar with World War II and all that happened are given right in the beginning of the movie a very quick lesson in the deadliness of war, the futility of it all. Those guys, that first wave of soldiers coming off those ships, and they're all just mowed down.
Yeah,
that's it. That's you were there to take bullets.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've watched a number and listened to like a number of podcasts and videos and stuff of people who were combat veterans reviewing war movies, and Saving Private Ryan constantly comes up as one that it gets the idea of the chaos and the violence and the shit is going wrong and we have to change things or else we're all gonna die and everything along that line. Also, I just have to get this in. Screw you, Academy Awards in 1998. This should have won everything.
All right. Just to get through the end of this list here, we have Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge on the River Kwai, Schindler's List, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about before of what's a war movie and what isn't. And then finally, Apocalypse Now. I love Apocalypse Now. It's like one of my favorite movies of all time. I used to have the Charlie Don't Surf t-shirt. That was big among industrial kids at the time. Apocalypse is a fucking classic. If you guys want to talk about any one of these other movies, Schindler's List, River Kwai, or Lawrence of Arabia, be my guest. But I'm going to close out my thoughts here and saying two things. One, I think this list is pretty inclusive. I maybe one or two representations from the Iraq or Gulf Wars, like Jarhead or Black Hawk Down, are missing off this list. But I don't think this list, when you're talking about going as far back as the 1940s up till now, I thought whoever put this list together, especially if it's based on awards, pretty good list. Those are my thoughts. I'm going to go just down the line here. Robert, your thoughts on the list, these last 5 movies, any burning desires? Go.
I will say, just because I didn't say much on like Schindler's List, for example, I never thought of that as a war movie. I do understand the thought behind including that in there, because of course the whole story is framed around and it's about, hey, World War II. I just never really looked at it as one, but again, can see why it is. Absolutely harrowing classic film though. Apocalypse Now, fantastic. Also, there's a manga called Apocalypse Meow, which has animals in place of the people.
And a stage production called Apocalypse Cow, of which I used to have a t-shirt.
I used to date a cow. Good times.
Was she an Apocalypse Cow?
It was to my sanity. Yeah, in terms of the other ones, Lawrence of Arabia, I actually was kind of surprised because I've forgot about that movie. Notable war movie that my dad would probably mention because he's showed it to me 1,000 times. Zulu. That was one he loved the fuck out of.
Mm-hmm.
Loved. He's still around, but he loved it then too. But that was one of his favorites, I guess. Of
Jesse, without saying the words Infinity War, what's missing off this list in your opinion?
The Final Countdown.
Ooh. From Europe?
The movie with Martin Sheen.
Okay.
Oh, what about Independence Day?
Do you know that movie,
God.
Mark? First off, do you know The Final Countdown, Mark?
I do not.
Okay, all right. Aircraft carrier hits a time warp and goes back in time to just before Pearl Harbor. And they have to make a decision as to whether they are going to interrupt history or change history or not. Great movie.
Great.
I am so mad the way that movie ended.
Oh, I know.
I wanted to let off a few harpoons and see what would happen to like a 1940s era warship.
Yes.
Do you also think Battleship is missing from this list, you child?
It's not on here.
Moving on.
Let's just say this. I do want to watch Apocalypse Now at some point. It's been on my list to watch for quite a while, and I still haven't got around to it.
Do it when you have time, man. That is a movie that demands your attention. And also don't have kids in the room. All right, Jeff Sloboda, any burning desires, anything missing off this list? Any egregious mistakes or anything you disagree with?
I just think Black Hawk Down, I could talk about I love talking about a lot of these movies. I could talk about a whole show just on some of the movies themselves, but I'm sure we all could, but Black Hawk Down is so compact.
Yeah.
You want to talk about like Saving Private Ryan, and Saving Private Ryan is one where I feel like if you had to translate again to like I think of my kids to them, taking into consideration the fact that books are going to be dead soon. Like people don't read anymore, especially kids. Like when I was a kid back in the day, I read voraciously, right? Sadly now because of what happened to me, I don't read so well as I used to. I can't read at the same volume, and whatnot, but I still like to read. Reading is going to end up dead eventually, right? It is. People aren't going to read. Kids barely read anymore as it is. You have to force them to. You have to visually present things to them. Saving Private Ryan does that. It conveys it D-Day so well. I'm sorry, Black Hawk Down is just so compact. It's so well shot, and it's so compact and so concise that it just delivers, and it delivers so well.
It's a tight film.
And it never lags at all, right? From start to finish, it's consistent. So I want to point that out, that it's not on the list.
All right, Andrew, take me home, baby doll. Hey, this was your whole segment, man. This is your whole deal.
It's good. I'll be perfectly honest. I have kind of conflicted feelings about Apocalypse Now because that is definitely a hell of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also kind of the weird combination of the Joseph Conrad novel and the Vietnam War put together.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lisa say if you're going to reference anything, you're going to reference the Ride of the Valkyrie scene.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's definitely in there. So, like, it's a great movie. I don't know if it's necessarily a great war movie or not. Or
I have one question for you. Do you think 13 Hours should have been on this list?
Fuck no. Hey, you know what? I'm glad. I can see you've got Hotel Rwanda up in the corner there.
I love Hotel
movie
Rwanda.
Makes me angry.
Why does Hotel Rwanda make you angry, Andrew Graham of the Screaming Boy podcast?
I've never been on the Screaming Boy podcast.
Nobody has. It's okay.
Just go with it.
Okay. Anyway, Okay. Point one. My antithesis towards Nick Nolte, and then making him the token Canadian was not great. And well, I know a lot about the history of what happened there, and yeah, it gets a little, I don't know. There are just things about that movie that irked me a little bit. Going on to a couple things. I'd say probably, Mark, I'm with you. I think it would have been good if we had gotten maybe not Hurt Locker, but maybe something else that had a little bit more of kind of the representation of more recent conflict. So I mean, a couple of things I had on my list: Zero Dark 30.
Yeah.
The Outpost, which didn't get any awards love, but I really enjoyed it, and I think that does a good job of kind of representing from what my understanding is of never being over there, but from reading some books on it, what the current conflict has been like.
Yeah.
In terms of like interacting with the locals, being out there and stuff like that. I think we've talked about a couple other ones just in passing, like 1917 was on my list. Dunkirk was on my list. Not quite a war movie, but Munich I think is kind of fascinating. And then the other thing was all the HBO war series.
Okay.
One of which is not going to be an HBO war series because it's going to be on Apple TV Plus, which is going to be Masters of the Air, and I think that drops later in the year.
Okay, you know which one? What's an my one last comment on this, and then we can move on. Since we're at an hour, an egregious leave off of this list: Glory with Denzel Washington. And
I was
Matthew
actually
Broderick.
thinking about that.
Great movie.
Yeah, I mean, like the Civil War, not the Civil War, like the American Revolution. Doesn't count. No, fuck. Glory is the Civil War, isn't it?
Civil War.
Yeah, like that, like it doesn't count. Another one, The Patriot. If nothing else, for the fucking cannonball scenes.
Oh yeah.
Yikes!
That
graphic violence.
But again, that's damn near American Revolution 300.
All right.
No, seriously. Like the filmmakers eventually had to apologize to an entire town in England where the colonel was from because he never did any of that shit. But Jason Isaacs is fucking terrifying, so good for him.
All right, Jeff, go ahead and put up. We're gonna do 2 Band Maid reactions at Jeff's request. We're gonna do one of them now, and then we'll do one of them after the next segment. Go ahead and put the first one up on the screen, Jeff. And then while you're doing it, tell us a little bit about it.
Will let me?
If you do it, it'll come into my queue, and then I'll put it on screen.
Okay, I've got it screen shared. How do I do it?
Yeah, Jesse, help him.
Wow, let's take a look here. So you got it down there. You're hitting present.
Yeah, it's right down here. I mean, I screen shared it. Do I do it differently when I'm on somebody else's?
I'm not seeing it in the queue, in my queue. When Jesse does it, he's doing it on his, and then I see it, and then I put it on screen.
Okay, hold on. Maybe I'm supposed to do something differently here. I apologize. Well, basically, I mean, Band Maid started in 2013 by Miku Kabadu. And she worked in one of the maid, cafes in Japan, essentially, right? Which is where the motif of Band Maid comes from. She's the one that she started the band. Now she basically is the rhythm guitarist and the backup singer. And but she started it in 2013. She was supposed to be the lead singer, but essentially decided to to drop herself down in status and hold auditions.
I see it now.
Yeah, realizing that she could find a better voice for the band. And she started off by finding Konami, the lead guitarist, and from Konami it went on from there. Psyche rounded out the band. The drummer is Akani. The bassist is Misa, the Barefoot Assassin. And they're my favorite band. I mean, I'm going to see them in May at Daytona Beach.
Oh, that's awesome. Daytona Beach. Okay, I'll have to see if I can get tickets for that. I might have
4-day festival. I'll send you the
they're playing Rockville?
Yeah, they're gonna be.
I was thinking about going, and we decided against it because it's like way expensive. I didn't realize they were playing. What day?
That Thursday.
Oh, fuck me running.
Yep, and then Evanescence is one of the headliner bands on that Friday night.
Send me all the video, and so I can put it up on my TikTok. All right, go ahead, Jeff. First of all, take it off mute. Make sure it's just low enough that we can talk over it, but high enough that we can hear it. Kinda, yeah. Lower that volume, bud. Lower that volume.
Tell me when she helped.
A little bit, right there, baby. That's the way I like it. All right, Band Maid. Here we go. So which one is this again, Jeff?
Play.
Andrew Graham. What do you think of these bandmaids? And be nice because their fans will come after you.
Oh boy.
Okay, you're muted there, bud.
I need to hear more of the song, but right now I'm trying to work in a Downton Abbey joke, and it's just not quite there yet.
Jesse, Starcher, you know what they're not like? They're not like baby metal, I'll tell you that much.
Well, yeah.
I wasn't going to mention them.
I would have never said their name at all. At all.
They can fucking play.
I was about to say that bass player's got some game.
Right. They've all got game. They're awesome live.
So what do we? Okay, here we go. So we got some vocals
that
at some
intro
point.
was 20 minutes long.
Their chemistry on the stage is outstanding.
Mark,
I mean, they're
like
tight. This performance is tight. Like, no, they're rocking out. There we go.
And she's extremely talented, Psyche. Akani is fucking disgusting on the drums.
I mean, they sound like a tight, heavy rock and roll band, you know?
When's the last album they dropped? Was it the one? Did we review one?
We reviewed the one with the fingernails.
Oh yes, all the fingers pointing at us for saying
we were wrong.
Baby metal.
Oh, you said it.
Oh, yeah. They're not like baby metal. They're amazing. They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them.
They got a little bit of funk to it, and I like it.
Yeah. No. Look, in all seriousness, I like the band a lot. What we're referencing is when we did the review, as we are with everything, we were critical, and I was saying, hey, I know these licks from elsewhere, and dude, we got savage in the comments. People were like, nope, they're perfect, shut your face. Like, okay, sorry. I won't do a review.
You should, pull in Dave Wright for one of these.
Check at Spotify for
Listen to that fucking double bass, baby.
Robert Cooper, what are you thinking?
I'm really enjoying the guitar and bass work here. The bass work again, just like as you were saying earlier, groovy. Fucking dig it. The guitar work, very. It's reminding me a lot of kind of my a little more standard J rock, but I mean that in a good way, of course.
Oh,
Please,
you better.
for the love of God, don't crucify me.
You better
with
mean
barbed
that in a good
wire,
way.
like I'm the Sandman, and it's 1996.
Hey, Jeff, you've done like 9 fucking zillion of these Band Maid reactions.
I have.
And I know you've done like the same video with different groups of people. Have you run across anyone that didn't like Band Maid? Like, have you
Everyone loves Band Maid. It doesn't matter what color they are, any fucking thing. Doesn't matter. They're blown away.
The great unifier.
The more you show them, the more they like it.
The band that brought peace to the Middle East, Band Maid.
Doesn't matter, and they don't play. Even
Modern day Bill and Ted.
Even the one there's almost no way to fuck up a Band Maid reaction.
Well, we tried.
we're trying. All right.
By the way, latest
live video.
Latest album called Unleash. 8 songs dropped in 2022.
All right. I have 2 children, and I've adopted a feral child. Currently, so I have an 8, going on 9, a 10-year-old, and 12-year-old living in my house that I am currently raising. I'm also raising 2 30-year-olds and a 40-year-old, but that's besides the point.
I have finally come to the realization.
Yes, Jesse.
These aren't people that you've adopted. Okay.
Oh, okay.
What you have done is you have created your own studio audience. I know this is exactly what that is.
No,
I ain't stupid.
One of them sitting right there on the couch listening to all this nonsense right now. You know what? And you're not wrong. I pushed my wife into polyamory. She didn't push me. I pushed her. Because I knew that if I pushed hard enough, eventually she would date a guy who would be homeless, and he would drag his girlfriend and his kid into my house, and I would finally have the studio audience that I've been looking for.
Audience.
I'm kind of surprised there's not shit flying at your head from off the screen, Mark.
What was that?
I'm kind of surprised there's not shit flying at your head from off screen, Mark.
She's currently yelling gibberish at me. I think she said I clean your house. I don't know. I don't understand her.
Mark,
Mark, this means you need to get the applause and the laugh sign going.
Hey, monkey, give me laughter and applause. There we go.
We don't use that terminology anymore.
Andrew Graham. Oh, well, Jesse, how many kids do you have, and how old are they?
3. We got a 17-year-old. We've got a 12-year-old.
I was gonna say your daughter's about to be 18, right? In life,
yeah, dude. Right? Yes.
She's driving. 18
IRL. Yes. Oh my gosh. And then I've got an 8-year-old.
Yeah. You've got one kid that's the same age as Jonas, or like around his age.
Right.
Jeff, you have like 87 children with 97 mothers, if I remember correctly. How many you got, baby?
I mean, honestly, I don't even use regular age anymore. Like, what, I go by the body count / age index. So I'm actually 387.7175 years old, to be clear. But no, I've got 2 kids, 12-year-olds, and I've got an 18-year-old, similar to Jesse. Shit, she's just like me. I raised her. So imagine a fucking female version of me. Right?
I'd like not to, actually. Thanks.
There you go. No, she's actually a great kid. She just thinks she knows everything, but she means well. Right? Do. Very much like me, right? Except I don't know shit, and I know it. So, but I know I like fucking Band Maid, baby.
So we've heard.
Yes, that is true.
All right, and Andrew Graham, I know you're we all call you Daddy. So, Daddy, how many kids do you have?
I'm gonna ask you to never call me Daddy again.
Once a podcast.
Request denied.
I have 9, almost 7, and 14 months.
How's that 14-month-old treating you?
He's active. He is going around the house at Mach 3 on all 4s, and he's starting to just do kind of random walking around the house here and there, but he's doing good.
How many times has he vomited on you since he's been born?
Oh God, Mark, why did you have to bring that up?
It's amazing. It's amazing how all everything that's happening during the show is connecting me to the night that she hugged on me. I mean, the all 4s deal, Apocalypse Now, like every war movie. Like there was some part of the war movie that I could relate.
I'm gonna keep doing it. Hey Jeff, tell me more about She-Hulk.
Hey, look! I'm telling you, It's gonna connect She-Hulk to every.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Every catastrophe that's ever happened to the human race throughout history has been connected to.
It was all me, James. It's always been me, the author of all your pain.
I have more clips I can play.
Look, I've got serious people out there, serious historians like Crackhead Whitney Houston, and Rachel Dolezal and everything. Yeah. Okay, that can connect.
Loki.
Moving on. All right, so we started talking about our kids because I saw this article on Fatherly, which is a blog that I follow, and I tend to, when I'm not putting up passive-aggressive articles from Psychology Today about relationships, I also like to share stuff about being a dad. The most important job a man can have. And here's what the article says. It says, what does it mean to be, first of the title of the article is How to Be a Man According to 15 Dads. So that was interesting and worthy of discussion. What does it mean to be a man? The answer is nearly impossible to pin down, as its definition fluctuates with the individual, differs across generations, and varies greatly from culture to culture. In American culture especially, expectations around masculinity are being reframed by many to include emotional honesty, admissions of weakness, and more nurturing aspects. This kind of exploration leads to healthier men who can better work their way through defeat, sadness, and the defied expectations we all experience in life. So how does this translate to parenting? What lessons do today's fathers hope to teach their boys about being a man? And I think, I just to start this off, I think that myself, Jesse, Andrew, and Jeff have all at one time or another, thought about how we define masculinity, how we define being a man, and then trying to figure out how to convey that to our sons. And trying to figure out like what is the best way to model and maybe not always succeeding. The struggle is real. So I thought we would all relate to this, and anyone listening to this might relate to it also. But first one, men go to the doctor.
This was an interesting one to open it up with.
Yeah, I haven't read through this. I saw the title, and I'm like, we're just going to talk about it. But I kind of wanted to react honestly to it. But go ahead, Jesse. You immediately kind of reacted viscerally to that. Men go to the doctor.
Well, I mean, you hear it all the time. People that are sick and they just are going to tough it out.
Yeah,
because they think that that's the manly way to handle things.
Right.
And now in today's day and age, that's a lot of people know at least better than that. They know that there are things that need to be found in order to be treated, and you can't just tough some things out as much as you want to.
I ignored the signs that I had cancer for months. So when I finally got diagnosed, I was in stage 4. Gosh. Great lesson in learning to deal with things before they become deadly.
Right. I know that, I go to the doctor for the checkup and everything like that.
Right.
But I will tell you that there are a few things myself, I'll admit, that I've had that, I've got this thing in my side. It seems like every morning I get up and I'm like, dang, I sure hope that isn't going to explode someday. I'll be all right, though. It's a large pianist in my side.
But I take a shot in the dark.
Relationship going so well, Mark.
So I can kind of identify with what they're saying here, but I'm also guilty.
My dad being the model for manliness. If you grew up with men in your life, you grew up with uncles, a father, grandfather. You had models close to you of how men behave, good, bad, or indifferent. And my dad was definitely one of those people who, unless he was dying, didn't go to the doctor. And he went to work in hurricanes. He went to work if he wasn't feeling well. He got up every single day and went to his job short of dying. And the few times that I actually saw him laid up, it was either he was recovering from surgery, he was somehow incapacitated, or he was way too sick. Legitimately too sick. And to the point where, like I said, up until I got cancer, I was the same way. Health insurance, fucking Jeff, was completely wasted on me. Because I just wouldn't use it until I got it.
And that's funny, Mark. It's strange that you say that, because what, when you think about it, I think of my dad growing up, my dad, he's old, he's at retirement age, and he still works, sort of part-time, but he owns a small level plumbing company. Yeah. But I'll tell you right now, my dad has really seriously hurt himself at work and not gone to the doctor. I've seen him do it multiple times and put off surgeries and shit.
Yep.
Now, Mark, you didn't work you've never been a tradesman, really. I don't think, have you? Right?
No, I've always been a smarty.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just that it's an interesting contrast. I would point out, like Jesse said, look, we're all fucking. You'd hope that our kids on their own, our sons, would know to fucking go to the doctor at this point. But realistically, shit can happen to anybody. You don't have to work in the fucking oil fields or something like that or whatever, to be the type to not want to go to the doctor as a man. That's my only point, right?
All right, let's move on to the next one. Strive to be good people, which seems obvious, so I want to read this one. For me, being a man is second in importance to being a good person. There are so many easy definitions of masculinity, everything from not crying or showing emotion to looking a certain way can preoccupy and distract from what it means to be a good person. And that transcends being a man. If you're a good person, kind, responsible, and accepting, then you're a good man. I want my kids to realize that, not just my son, but my daughter too. When she eventually grows up and meets the man she's going to love, or woman, I want her to know what's important to look for. And that's James, 43, Ohio. You know, Jesse, and I'm going to go to Andrew after this too to get him in the conversation. But we here at the Radulich Broadcasting Network, we pray to Saint Spike Lee, who always tells us to do the right thing. And I make a joke, I'm being flip, but something that I say to my housemates, it's something I've said to my kids for years. Always do the right thing, even if it hurts, even if you're not necessarily going to benefit from it. The right thing is always better than the wrong thing. It's not about what benefits you. And that is hard for people in a society that seems to promote a lot of selfishness. In a society that promotes a lot of relativism, you know, nothing matters, that sort of thing. It's, you know, it's all relative. I really strive towards always try to make the best decision, and it doesn't come easy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Out of all the things that are on this list, I would say this is probably top 3 for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you want your kids to grow up to be somebody that, number one, other people like. You don't want somebody else to hate your child.
I think I said that to my son the first day of preschool. I was like, what if nobody likes me? I'm like, well, don't be a bag of dicks and everyone will like you.
I remember you saying that. Right. Yeah. It's a matter of just having good character and actually being somebody that people would gravitate towards,
right,
and not feel like you are somebody that is just not a good person. So, I mean, I think what is said here is great.
Do you and your family pray to Saint Spike Lee, Andrew? Always do the right thing?
I don't think I've ever actually seen that movie, but
you haven't.
But yeah, I know I'm now cast out. Anyway, I'm gonna have to go find another podcast to go join instead. Anyway, yeah, this one definitely hits with me. I mean, like, you know, it seems obvious, but it's not. Like, you know, be responsible, be kind. That's one thing that I think, you know, we'll get to this a little bit later on, but it's like kindness is something that I think is a vastly underrated quality right now. And I think that's something to really look for and embrace. And yeah, also embrace accountability, embrace integrity. And, you know, if you screw up, own your shit, fix it, move forward.
Jeff, like 10 words or less, you want to say something about that so we can move on to the next person?
Yeah, just basically that. No, I think that it's important to, like, you made a good point, Mark. Selflessness, helping people isn't something that you talk about. If you really care about helping people and you really, you know, do care about your fellow man, you shouldn't be shouting it off of rooftops. And that's why I don't talk about a lot with my son or with anybody. What happened to me back in the day, you know, I'm disabled and everything. You know, I saved a black man's life and whatnot.
Yep.
You know, that alone on its own, I think, you know, that's how you prove shit to your son, right? Is actions like that. That, you know, that's the truth.
Face and embrace your feelings. Something that Robert Winfrey and I talk about a lot on Damn You Hollywood as it relates to film is that men are not raised with the language of feelings. That's a woman's thing. But being in the mental health field for over 20 years, I've learned the language of feelings. I have shared that with others. I've talked about it on podcasts. But it's not something that men come naturally to. But it's definitely something that we all feel. A lot of literature being written right now, a lot of things being talked about is men are feeling lonely, disconnected. Men are struggling with relationships. They're struggling with their own feelings. They're struggling with not feeling seen or heard because at least the sort of casual perception of what a man should be is almost like children. You know, men should be, you know, going out and providing and shutting up and not talking about their feelings. And the problem is we're all human beings, and that stuff affects you after a while, especially when you don't feel like anyone's listening to you. So this whole idea of, you know, the idea of like boys don't cry and all of that is really antiquated. I think, you know, I've taught my son, I've really tried to teach my son and anyone that I come across the full life and weight and breadth of humanity is to experience feelings, positive and negative. And you should not feel shamed for being sad. You should not feel shame for being frustrated or angry. These are natural human emotions. And when my son feels that way, you know, and he needs to cry about it, or, you know, he needs to throw a little tantrum, like, okay, let's do that. Let's give you safe space to get your feelings out and communicate what's going on with you so that you're not bottling it up and it coming out as rage or substance abuse or some other negative thing later on in life. What do you think about that, Robert?
No, that's something that I found actually kind of interesting in some of like the environments I've been in with mainly work. School wasn't so bad about it, but especially with some of the older folks that I've worked with, talking about feelings or mental health was very uncomfortable for a lot of them.
Sure.
Like
I feel like you're gonna be judged.
Yeah, like I mentioned, like as my therapist once said, and then they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to hear about your therapy." I'm like,
"Look, tell me about your strange kinks. I don't want to hear about your therapy."
Like, oh yeah, that's almost dirty in a way to some people, and I think it's healthy to kind of be able to look and realize, hey, why am I feeling this way?
Right.
And just being honest with yourself, because as I've gotten older, it's something I've had to figure out, kind of what was I not taught in my younger days,
unlearning a lot of beliefs you have.
Yeah, like what in what way was I lacking? What could I do better for other generations or people in general? What could I help encourage?
What about you, Jesse?
Man, this is one of the things where I struggle because I'm known to shut down sometimes. And
I haven't noticed.
I do that too. It's okay.
Thanks, Coop. But there has been a lot of talk, as we all know, of good mental health, and I'm starting to realize that I need to stop this. I need to learn how to deal with it. And I can tell you that with kids, you start to realize some of the things that you need to deal with a lot. Let's just say a lot sooner than you would if you didn't have kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, next one, fight for equality. I didn't actually grasp this lesson until a few years ago when the whole Me Too thing was blowing up. I had some really productive conversations with friends and coworkers that made me realize how equality benefits everyone. A level playing field is the healthiest, most prolific environment for success because it really emphasizes skill, talent, and intelligence over privilege. I want my son to have enough confidence to avoid letting any insecurity make him feel threatened. A man thrives on equality because he knows that real progress, whether it's personal, professional, educational, or whatever, can only happen if no one gets a head start. I think, Andrew, that speaks to don't be a misogynist. Don't be chauvinistic. It seems like it would be obvious, but that's probably not the worst life lesson to teach your son, is that short of, some biological differences and some real common sense stuff that we've talked about in the past, that, for the most part, men and women are equal and should be treated as such. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, maybe we'll go back to the quote. I mean, he mentions about having some reality checks during the start of Me Too. I mean, like, Alicia started to tell me stories, and it's like, holy shit. Holy shit. And it's like, this actually happened. I mean, thankfully never had anything too serious, but it's also like, sometimes just opening your eyes to, what the other half of the species has to deal with.
Not to trigger Jeff, but we talked about that on our She-Hulk review, about, I without getting into everything else about it. The one thing she said was to have to go through life as a woman and suffer the slings and arrows of dealing with a man society that slants itself against women. I'm well prepared to handle a raging monster inside of myself. I do it every day. There was a bit of credence to what she was saying.
Oh, it was kind of interesting. So I watched it with Alicia, and apologies to Jeff for bringing up She-Hulk again. But seriously, like, she was watching it and she's like, that happened. It's like, yes, that has actually happened both to me and around me when a group of women have pulled another woman into the bathroom to try and provide a support system to her.
Right.
And it's like, I think that show, as much as it got hacked for it, I think there was a degree of authenticity to it as well that I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't want that shit happening to anybody. You wouldn't want that happening to you. You wouldn't want to have that happening to your loved ones. You wouldn't want to have that happen to any random person on the street.
Well, it's funny because, like, we all have daughters, we all have sons, and what do we say to our sons? Treat your sister nicely. We say to our daughters, treat your brother nicely. Don't mistreat them. And it's weird that a lot of people don't then carry that out into, like, the greater population. Like, no, treat all the girls nicely. treat all the boys nicely. Why are we just limiting this to, it's like the conversation, not to be gross, but the conversation we had on our review of X a while back. And I was reminded of this because I just cut up that TikTok and posted it the other day about like, it's okay for some girls to be whores and prostitutes, but not every girl, not the one I'm with. It's like, why do we do that? Why we put some girls up on a pedestal and say, these are to be the protected folk and the rest of you whores are fine, to be abused. Like, how about we just don't mistreat people? How about that? Like simple enough thing, but we seem to struggle with it.
Mark, can I hit, I'll let you hit the preamble on this one, but can I get at this one next?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you go ahead on your preamble first and then.
Well, I'm just going to read it. Recognize love. The world is full of hate. A real man can recognize and cherish love no matter where it comes from. My father always had a hard time saying I love you while I was growing up. And I get that. This is how I was raised. And I think he's a real man for sure. But I also recognize that he isn't perfect. And I want my sons to say I love you whenever they genuinely have a chance to do so. I say it to them all the time now, and they're at an age where it's a little embarrassing in front of their friends. But they'll grow out of that age. I hope they won't ever grow out of the capacity to show love. Go ahead, Andrew.
That to me is just hits it out of the goddamn park. Like, one of the things that has had me think about this more, the conversation of what is a man and what is masculinity, especially in light of raising my own kids, is looking around at a lot of the dialogue around what men are, what men should be,
right,
and just finding a lot of the voices just caked in negativity. Like it being about, what have we lost? What do we need to get back? What do we need to do this? What do we need to do that? And sometimes in a Scottish accent that's slightly inebriated. But anyway, but it's like, everyone knows this. I've spent 20 years doing martial arts. And it's been a variety of different places. And the most common thing you find there at the best places you go to is love. It's love for what you do. It's love for what, the people around you. It's those sorts of things. It's that embracing maybe one of the purest positive emotions that you have. And, I have that for martial arts, but whatever it is, embrace that. Don't be afraid to express it and find things that you love in life and take that forward. And that is so important to instill both within ourselves and within our children, because to quote a guy, if you take a ship up in that you don't love, it'll kick you off as sure as the spinning of the earth.
I think the most important thing we can do is hug and kiss and tell our children that we love them. Because so much of what I hear from other people is them saying that they were never hugged, they were never kissed, and they were never told they were loved by their parent. And the parent's defense is, how did you not know? I did everything for you. How could you not know that you weren't loved? And it's like, because the typical expressions of love are through affection and just saying it. But so many people struggle with that, especially because, saying I love you to another man is not necessarily well received. In the year of our Lord 2023, we still struggle with this sort of thing, to the detriment of our children. Jesse, did you want to quickly weigh in on that?
I was just going to tell you that my son, Caleb, he will walk in a room, grab himself a drink, and then on his way out, he just says, "Love you guys."
Yep.
But it is, it's constant. And I love that, I, as a father, you sit there and think like, is there going to be a time where he stops saying that? And that kind of hurts when you begin to think about things like that. But the good thing is that you could take comfort in the fact that, I take comfort in the fact that he's saying it and that he has no problem saying that, he loves us. I
know Jeff relates to this one. He talks about it all the time, standing up for others. Jeff doesn't need to tell the story again, but Jeff defended somebody to the detriment of his own mental health, his own physical health. But I think Robert, I think standing up for others. I make a joke of it all the time. I do the John Cena thing. Be a star, don't be a bully. But to not be flippant, to really take that seriously. I think that is a great life lesson to teach your kids, that standing up for somebody who is struggling is a great way to express positive masculinity. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, especially if you're in a position to where maybe that can do something very good for them. Or, a lot of times somebody's getting picked on, somebody stands up for them. That's can be one of the best things you can do for somebody.
Right.
And maybe it was small or maybe it was large, but like it, we all could really stand to do something for someone else.
Working hard but with a purpose. I know this is something Jesse and I talk about all the time. That, we Andrew, we go out there as fathers to provide for our families, and we work, but you're working to make sure your family is taken care of, but shouldn't lose sight of the fact that you still need to be with your family and try to find that balance. I'm not even sure what the paragraph says, but that's my interpretation of work hard but with a purpose. Because the other thing I hear the big complaint from a lot of people who struggled with their parents was their father would go to work and then not spend time with the family, or they would work themselves to death. They'd make all this money, but they weren't present. And that's something I actually had a conversation with the girl I was out with tonight about. I joke about being social. I joke about our polyamorous dynamic, and the toll it takes on my social life, and trying to remember that I still have to be present with my children, and figuring out how I'm going to balance work, fatherhood, social life, marriage, and making enough time for everything, and it feeling a little overwhelming. But it's something that has to be done. It's something that I take pretty seriously. What about you, Jeff?
Well, I mean, for me, again, my nature is just, it's always been extremely selfless my whole life. So, I mean, like when I raised my own daughter by myself, essentially with my family's help, I need to give them credit, because I did raise my own daughter with a full custody dad for over 12 years. Before and after I became disabled. Even after I became disabled, I still raised Isabella for 3.5 years, out of a bed, basically, which wasn't exactly the best situation, but I did the best I could. You do what you do in those situations. But no, for me, the balance for me has never been. You do have to be. When I was working, Mark, I was one of those fathers where I was so dedicated to work that, like, I worked every weekend. I worked 24-hour on call, work and whatnot. I would take other people's on calls on purpose just to make money and whatnot. And so I worked all the fucking time. But I always spent time with my kids. My kids are always my focus. For me, the balance is trying to make sure that I have time to myself, that I make sure I do things for me.
Andrew, did you relate to this at all?
In terms of just hard work, absolutely. I mean, you've got to. I think you've got to teach your kids that is something that is a requisite part of life. And I mean, I think you've also got to teach them to try and find the things that they take joy in, they take love in, and apply themselves to that. Like, find a career that you maybe not love, but you enjoy, that you find satisfaction in, and put your energies towards that. And don't kid yourself that if you've been in a place for 10 years and it's not treating you well anymore, that's not somebody to work hard for. Go out there and find what you need for yourself.
This next one, know when to make sacrifices, I think goes into sticking up for others. So I'm gonna go past it unless somebody has a burning desire to talk about it. But this one hits home with me. Admit mistakes. I'm in therapy now. I'm also in marriage counseling, and a lot of the discussion that goes on in those things is looking back on some of the decisions that I made and going, probably could have handled that better. And trying to do better. The Cleveland joke from Family Guy. It's just no one's gonna be perfect. We all just try to do a little bit better, Jesse. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, number one on my list, man, right here. Admit mistakes. This is something that I really, really stress to my children. That it's, if you make a mistake, just own up to it, and that way you can move past it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, when you got little kids, you're telling them, you've got to be honest. If you do something wrong, tell your parents. It's going to be a lot better if you try to get around it and not. Admit your mistakes, and you're going to be able to learn from them. And plus, one of the things, this was probably a couple weeks back, I was really having a tough time with something that Caleb had done, and got upset, blew up, and then afterwards, I calmed down and I went over to him and I said, "I'm sorry." And he's like, "You don't have to be sorry because you're disciplining me." I said, "It's not that I disciplined you. It's the fact that I handled it completely wrong."
Yeah.
And, being able to do that, I think, number one, sets an example for your children. I am absolutely 100% on board for admitting mistakes.
Trust facts. This is an interesting one, and I'm not entirely sure if I agree with it. But when making decisions, I think a real man does everything in his power to make the best decision possible. I'm not talking about researching lawnmowers or TVs before you buy them. I'm talking about interacting with people and speaking to those people in a way that respects them. Obviously, it's impossible to know everything about someone if you've just met, and in a diverse culture, you can't assume you do. You have to genuinely want to learn about someone and be as informed as possible during those interactions, not just so you don't offend someone, but so you don't give the people the reasons to think you're ignorant or uncaring. Neither of those traits are of a real man. I don't know. I don't disagree with it, but I think that's the wrong heading. Trust facts.
Yeah, I agree with the wrong heading side. I think the sentiment of
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you know, almost a lot of these interweave. I mean, you know, that's one of those things where, you know, you are not the keeper of all knowledge. You know, the volumes of stuff you don't know compared to what you do, and you know, you have to be open to what people's other experiences are, and that's something I'm constantly relearning.
This is something I talk to my wife about all the time. Your words mean nothing. It's all about your actions, and certainly it's not about your possessions. Your actions speak 1,000 words. I say that all the time. I said, I don't care what it is you're saying to me. You have to do. And that's the important thing. I stress that with my children. I say it to my wife all the time. I try to live by that. It's not always easy, but I try. I've been calling on different people to try to keep everyone interweaved in the conversation, but just in the interest of time, does anyone want to say anything about that, or could I just go on to the next one?
If you start bragging about your shit, you could accidentally disclose your location to the Romanian police and get yourself arrested.
Perfect. I see what you did there.
Don't make excuses. That's another really good one. You know, Spaceballs. Don't be sorry. Be quiet. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that's another pretty obvious one. Don't just own up and do the right thing. This goes into some of these. I think some of these go into what we've already talked about, so I don't want to make a huge deal about it. So, don't make excuses. Kind of goes into what we were saying before about standing up and doing what's right. Acknowledging your limitations. So this one's a hard one. See, this one I can talk about. Knowing that you're, as much as you try to be. I know for me, being a man means that you lift the heaviest burdens, you tackle the heaviest jobs, you climb the highest mountains, and then you fall flat on your face when you can't quite make it, and how frustrating and how much of a failure I feel like when I don't acknowledge my limitations and I push myself and I fail. And I pick myself back up again because you have to, but it's a painful process, Jesse.
Oh man, this is one that I really will tell you that I have no problem acknowledging my limitations. I think after kid 1, I was like, okay, I know what I can do and what I can't do, and I'm no longer going to try to do more than what I can. So I know where my limit's at, bro.
Yeah. What about you, Andrew?
Oh yeah, the limitations is incredibly important, both in terms of, I think, all of us have our limitations. I am somebody who knows enough about a lot of stuff to be dangerous. So I need to call in experts when I need to. So there's a lot of stuff where I don't do it myself around the house. That's when I'm calling a contractor, for example. But going to some of the larger stuff, and I think this ties into a lot of things around health and feelings and things like that. And it's like, once you you've got to know where your limits are and being able to say, hey, I could use some help here, or hey, this is too much. This is something I can't do anymore.
I gotta share something really quick. Sorry. But when I went through cancer back in 2017 and then in 2019, I thought I was doing the right thing by saying, hey, Melissa, take care of the kids, take care of the house, focus on that. Let me focus on kicking cancer's ass, and I don't need help. I don't need you to help me. Focus on them. They need you. I thought I was doing the right thing. Turns out I wasn't. And not accepting my wife's help. And, that goes into the next one too, but learning from failure, acknowledging the mistakes of shunning my wife and pushing her away and saying, I can do this myself because that's what men do. Men will, a man fights cancer alone. And the message that I sent her was, I don't need her, which is not the intention. Big time blunder on my part. Missed the ball entirely. And it took me till really recently, because Jesse and I had a conversation about that very same thing, but I look at it from a completely opposite perspective. Months later, I look at that and I go, nope, I'm going to go ahead and say I fucked up. I should have accepted help when it was offered. But, I think we as men struggle with that, right, Robert? Like, we define manlyhood as being able to, to stand in the face of adversity alone because that's what we're taught. And then, you send the message that you don't need people. And what happens when you don't need them? They walk away from you. And it's like, well, I didn't want that either. Like, shit, I fucked that up.
Yeah, that was something that I'll say, in terms of modeling from my parents, was something having adult relationships with people and relying on them for helping carry emotional weight, or even just celebrating things with them, having friendships and relationships was something that was I'm still having to get used to, because my parents, they didn't really have friends. Like, they get home from work, they hang out together. That's about it. And in terms of any sort of weight, either you carry it alone or maybe you shoulder some with your significant other, but that's it. And that is something, I had a stepkid for a year, miss her. But something I would definitely say if I had kids other than this fuzzy little bastard making biscuits is, just make sure the people that are trying to reach out to you, that want to help you, you accept that and you at least try to, because if not, they're not going to want to stay around, because you just
I was such an ass about things. Like, I remember laying on, like, getting a CAT scan at Moffitt and laying on the bench, and I wouldn't accept help getting up. Like, nope, I'll do it myself. Get off me. Like, they're nurses. They're trying to help me up, and I won't do it.
Mark, if you don't mind if I jump off of Robert,
yeah, go ahead.
Robert, I get where Robert's coming from. I do very much in that. For me, my parents didn't really have friends either. There was just them. They both own businesses. So I was alone by myself, like you talked about before from the article, Mark. When you mentioned, like, I was always alone by myself at the house. My mom and dad were always at work. They were rarely ever together. Really, the holidays was the only time when we ever came together as a family. Vacations, stuff like that, whatever. At that point, I guess and you probably need to stop smoking so much weed, because I forgot my point. Isn't that wonderful, Robert? I connected from you to that.
All right. Well, Jeff, I hope you didn't smoke so much weed that you forgot what we're doing next. But before you do, hey, Jesse, just kind of, what'd you think of that article?
Oh, it's enlightening. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there that I think applies to, many fathers today. So, yeah, that's good stuff, man. You grabbed a good one.
How about you, Andrew?
That's a good one. There's one thing that I kind of noticed about just kind of where that went with where our conversation went. And it feels like the 16th one would have be okay with accepting help.
Yeah.
Because I think that's something we all got to at some point here, but it wasn't actually in the article itself.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jeff, this is the last segment of the night. You wanted to do 2 reactions. This is the second one. 10 words or less. Tell us all about it.
Band Maid manners. A lot of contrast from song to song. That's one of the things that you'll find about Band Maid, is that they don't stick to one genre, right? Their songs are never the same. All
right, hit it. Hit it, Darren.
Hit it, Dano. Wait, welcome to Dano.
I gotta say that bass work is pretty good.
Yeah.
Slapping the bass.
The rhythm section of this band is fucking disgusting.
All right, that's got some funk to it, man.
And the harmonies with Miku and Psyche are outstanding.
Ooh, we get translation this time.
You don't even need the subtitles with Band Maid. It doesn't even matter.
No, but it is making it better. Where's the fun of monochrome world? I like that one.
I have a friend. I was recently listening to an old episode of Metal Hammer of Doom, and I was telling the story at the time. I don't know if you remember this, Cooper, that he was like, if I can't understand the lyrics, the song sucks. I'm like, well,
Andrew, I meant more if you're a fan, you know what I mean, and you've been listening to them. No, they're very positive. It's very uplifting.
Yeah.
Until You've Painted a Miracle, I like that one.
Some good lyrical content here from Band Maid.
Sometimes find that.
Listen to that fucking bass line, man.
What'd you say, Coop?
I was just saying, with foreign music, the thing that's kind of funny is in foreign music, if you not understanding the language can sometimes be helpful. Because let's say you're listening to a song that's quite vapid, you would have no idea.
Right.
Or it's hilarious when you think the song's quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, quite lurid, but it's actually rather tame.
Right.
Like, if you've ever looked at the actual lyrics to Gangnam Style, it's actually kind of hilarious.
Jesse and I have had fun with translation on the Metal Hammer of Doom.
Oh, yeah. Have we ever? Throwing it in the old Google Translate.
Oh my god, didn't we do that with fucking, what was it? The Dinosaur Band.
Oh, Heavy
Saurus?
Heavy Saurus, yeah, it was all in Danish.
Oh, yeah.
That was I'll never forget that because I listened to the wrong album. Yeah. That's the best. That's my favorite part about that. Is I was like, wait, what album did you guys listen to?
The Christmas one, you dork.
It was all in fucking Finnish or something. I couldn't tell.
Dude, it's metal. Half of it's in Finnish.
Yeah,
man's got a point.
One of the ones that kind of caught me by surprise was, and of course I can't remember the name of the band now, but it's that all strings like Swedish metal band, Apocalyptica, and they had the lead singer from Rammstein do a song with them, and it took me a while to figure it out. And it's the "We Can Be Heroes" song.
Oh, nice.
In German.
The destination beyond evolution. Take over the world.
Take over the world. Never-ending dreamer.
Never-ending Tommy Dreamer.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he's never-ending because his fat keeps going. Unlike his hairline.
Drinking from a spit bucket.
Oh, no. I forgot about that. Chewing on the urinal cup.
I'd like to know what this unseen world is they keep on referencing.
It's through the Mirrorverse.
Which did you love that cover I sent to you the other day, Mark?
I haven't listened to it yet.
Oh, they're a Polish band.
Yeah.
Quo Vadis.
Na 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 na.
I thought you was going to bust into some Clarissa Explains It All.
That's where I was. I was right there.
I knew it.
Well, folks, that is the Whiskey Rebellion, the greatest war movies of all time and whatnot. Andrew Graham, you got to hang out with us for almost 2 hours. Did you have fun?
I did have fun. Thanks very much, guys. Had a lot of fun.
All right. So let's go ahead and do plugs. Jeff Sloboda of the MCU's Bleeding Edge. Show me where you pissed from.
Oh, well, fuck, man.
Don't.
Wrong website.
Hey, Last of Us. That's all I'm going to say. We got episode 3 tomorrow night on the MCU's Bleeding Edge live. The 3rd episode of The Last of Us. Last of Us has been great so far. We reviewed episode 1 and 2 last week. Loved it. We did really good on YouTube with our numbers on it, too. People are very interested in it. HBO Studios makes some great fucking TV shows, man.
Oh,
and how about those settings, guys? Come on.
Yeah. So, you know. Oh, and we're having our 10K. We're already almost 11,000, but we're having our 10K special on Friday. So we're going to bring back old guests. I might even reach out to Alexis Hania from Belgian Broadcasting Network and see if she wants to come on. We're going to bring back old guests and whatnot and everything from the beginning and just do some MCU throwback shit like Infinity Saga trailer reactions there, Jesse. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Look at
Infinity
that.
War.
Please more the Batman reactions.
And Batman, definitely we'll do both the Batman trailers. I have to play them. Just so I can piss off all the guests I've had that have almost killed themselves. But no, yeah, we're gonna have our 10K special, and then every Sunday on the Bleeding Edge at 7 p.m. Eastern, we're doing a Phase 5, Phase 6 preview every Sunday, all the way up to Secret Invasion. So that's all we're doing.
All right, Robert Cooper, something about a martini. Show me a weenie.
You know, something that actually had been on my mind. I have nothing of my own to plug because Unlike, I don't know, like fucking 8-9 years ago when I didn't have a job, I have a job. So I can't have 5 podcasts simultaneously. Unlike Mark, who has a job and 5 podcasts somehow. Really good band in the subject that we've been speaking about today. A band called 1914. They're a Ukrainian black metal band, and all of their songs are about World War I trench warfare.
Nice.
Very fucking very, very harrowing, but also really fucking metal. So yeah.
All right, Jesse, what submissive class are you taking next?
It's on the schedule here tomorrow, as a matter of fact. Can you get certified in that? Is that like
be a certified dom or a certified submissive?
I will ask certification.
Jesse, you should come down to Florida. You should come down to Florida. I'll take you to BDSM night.
I'm sure you would.
I can tell you right now that all my personal private videos are certified fresh, baby. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt.
Don't believe that.
Just see some of my threesomes, Jesse.
I've heard your stories.
Please send them all to him in vascular detail, Jeff. I will give you his email.
I have never canceled my internet so quickly. All right, so hey, check it out. Listen, yesterday, as a matter of fact, not the last yesterday, Monday, the 30th, we talked Pizza Hut comics on the Unspoken Issues podcast. If you went to Pizza Hut in the 90s, you probably picked up a personal pan pizza and got yourself some X-Men comics. That's what we talked about.
Shit.
4 issues.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Forgot about those.
Yeah. And then next week, we are talking more Pizza Hut comics when they came with the little videos of the animated series. So I don't know if you guys remember that or not.
Jesse,
check that out.
Nobody cares. When are we getting Hit It, Darren, the best of the source material gag reel, volume 1?
Oh, whenever I have time to go through every single fucking episode me and you were on.
I did over the weekend.
Yeah, I could tell you were going through quite a few. Like I could see you right now scrolling right to the last 4 minutes every single fucking episode.
And I'm dying laughing every single. What a dick I was to you back then. Not like I am now.
Well, Ronnie had the classic like reactions. That was
Ronnie was the best.
Of some of those.
Dude, I've been playing Shark Prostitute all around the house, and Ronnie and like I laughed so hard I peed, and Ronnie's like having a meltdown. You're a grown man.
You're a grown man.
Me yelling "foo the snoo" at him, and him going, "That doesn't mean anything to me." We drove Ronnie out of podcasting.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, way to go.
Of the Screaming Boy podcast?
Yeah, of the very same.
The actual Screaming Boy podcast.
But
yes.
So,
listen,
when am I getting this? When?
Motherfucker. I'm not going through all of those. I will be putting some more syndicated source materials up at some point because I started to realize that, hey, we could do Spotify playlists of some great themed, subjects. So started doing that over the weekend. But anyway, that's all I have for myself right now. So check out the Source Material Comics feed and subscribe. It lists us talk about 90s comics on there with Unspoken Issues and the Source Material Comics podcast, where we just talk about anything comics related usually. So there you go.
Andrew Graham, I hear rolling on the mat in your pajamas with other men is only gay if you make eye contact. Tell them all about it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks very much. Okay. Yes, I do practice the art of involuntary
yoga. We'll see in 6
yoga.
months, Andrew.
Are you certified, Andrew?
I don't know if I want to dignify that with a response at this point, but anyway. All right. In more serious matters, I do train at Havoc and Steam Martial Arts here in Calgary. Battle tested, battle proven. You can find them on all of your major social medias. Also, don't be like me and actually go watch The Last of Us. The Last of Us was filmed actually right here in and around the area of Calgary, Alberta, where we also have excellent craft beer. Hence, we have Fungus Zombies and craft beer in Alberta and fantastic vistas. Come check it out. I actually found out a friend of mine did some of the set dressing for the opening in scene 1 in episode 1 or something like that. So anyway, that's been a big showcase for this province and this city and everything like that. So go watch The Last of Us, and then if you feel like it, come to Alberta because it's awesome.
All right, Thursday we're gonna re-air the UFC 241 Cormier Miocic 2 alternative commentary we did from a few years back. This Saturday there'll be a new Everyone loves the bad guy. Yesterday, we reviewed the Royal Rumble 2023, and we reviewed A Pale Blue Eye, starring Christian Bale, directed by Scott Cooper. We also have a new episode of Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do, where they reviewed and Plane. This Sunday is Metal Hammer of Doom Sundays. We'll be looking at Civil War. Remember Civil War, Robert Cooper?
Grandma!
The Killer Angels. Jesse's Pizza Hut fucking thing instead of my bag reel will be up Monday. And then it's Black History Month. Get a load of these Black History Month shows that we're doing. We celebrate the vast and sundry culture, the rich culture of Black cinema here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, because we are allies. And we are kicking things off with a triple feature, myself and Jason Teasley, Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, and Juice.
Man.
Guess the theme. Then we've got on February 20th, Foxy Brown, Sheba Baby, and Black Mama, White Mama, a whole show dedicated to Pam Grier, like we do. And then we are closing out Black History Month with a triple feature featuring one of the great comedians of Black cinema, Eddie Murphy. We're going to be looking at Harlem Nights, Trading Places, and Life. Nelly. We'll also be reviewing Knock at the Cabin, which may or may not be the #1 movie this weekend. It might be 80 for Brady. Who knows?
Oh, God.
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't think it's going to be 80 for Brady.
Just saying. Because
Alexis Hannon and I will be reviewing Resident Alien, season 1. Part B.
Big difference.
Yeah. And then finally, Chris Bailey. The History of Boxing is back. Myself and Pat Mullen, the punchy pugilist, will be looking at Pernell Whitaker versus Julio Cesar Chavez.
Oh,
yeah, good fight. All right, folks, this has been the Whiskey Rebellion for Jeff Sloboda of the MCU's The Batman trailer, for Andrew Graham, Robert Cooper, the Metal Coop, and the Submissive Brat, Juicy J, Combat Jack, Jesse Starcher. I'm a giant pain in the ass. Be well, be safe, and behave.